I greet you with Jesus' joy. I'm Reverend Michael McClain. Today's devotional is taken from 1 Samuel chapter 30, verses 6, and it reads, And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the souls of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Our title for today's devotional is Triumph Over Trouble. According to Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary, the definition of trouble is to agitate mentally or spiritually, to worry or be disturbed. Trouble is something that I believe we all can relate to. At some point in all our lives, we encounter trouble. Some of us, even as I speak, are facing trouble. It seems as if when one trouble puts us down, another trouble picks us up. Church family, we can thank God that we have the Bible, the Word of God, that we can go to get the courage and the encouragement that we need to help us to overcome and triumph over our troubles. In our text, King David finds himself in serious trouble. And it reads, And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people were grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. King David and his men returned to Ziklag after being rejected by the Philistines to come alongside of them to go into battle. When King David and his men returned, they were devastated to find that the Amalekites had invaded Ziklag. The Amalekites burnt down the city, and to make matters worse, they took King David's wives and his men's wives and their sons and their daughters captive. And we would think that things couldn't get any worse, but they did. The men that was with King David talked about stoning him because their souls was grieved for their family. But wait a minute, here's the good news. When King David had no one to turn to, he encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Then King David asked the priest to bring him the ephod, which was an elaborate garment that was worn by the high priest, upon which the breastplate contained the Urim and the Thummim that represented God's presence and revealed the will of God. So therefore, King David asked the Lord, what should he do? And the Lord answered him and told him to pursue, and he will triumph over his trouble. So therefore, King David did what the Lord told him to do, and he recovered all that the enemy had taken. So what does this suggest to you and me? Like King David, first, we must learn to encourage ourselves when others don't. Second, we must always be sure that we are in the presence of God. Third, we must pray for God's guidance and directions. And last but not least, we must move when God directs us to do so. And if we would just act on these few steps and trust God in the process, we will triumph over our trouble. Remember, trouble don't last always, so stay encouraged.